Welcome to The Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. I wanted to update everyone and explain why we did not have shows on Friday and Saturday. As I've been mentioning, YouTube has been censoring our show and demonetizing our videos. We had to spend the last couple of days developing new strategies for distribution and monetization that does not rely on YouTube. We have set our plans in motion and we will be making an announcement soon. In the meantime, we will continue to release our videos here, and when the time is right, we will announce our new home. We greatly appreciate everyone's support. Now, in today's episode, we're going to visit some of the recent moves made by the new administration immediately following the inauguration ceremony on January 20th, as well as a few other related stories. Now, let's take a look. After Biden took office, leftist social media began increasing free speech censorship. Biden himself quickly ousted the Trump administration's designated press officer. On January 21st, in Biden's first full working day, he fired 4 officials in charge of news broadcasting. One of them is Michael Pack, Chief Executive Officer of the U.S. Agency for Global Media. The agency oversees U.S. foreign broadcasting. It consists of media outlets such as Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Television Marte, Radio Free Asia, and Allura TV and Radio Sawa. They are one of the few government-run media outlets in the United States and are funded by Congress. Michael Pack is a conservative documentary filmmaker and confidant of former President Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon. He was appointed by the Trump administration to oversee the operations of the Global Media Agency. His mission was to block political influence in the media's reporting, as well as prevent bias towards the Chinese Communist Party in their reporting. Michael Pack took over the Global Media Agency last year. He conducted a major shuffle of the leadership in the various media outlets. The new round of appointments ended January 19th. Soon after President Biden took office, Michael Pack was fired. After Michael Pack's dismissal, former program director of Voice of America, Kilu Chao, was appointed as the acting CEO of the Global Media Agency. She is a Taiwanese American whose father is Ting Chung Chao, the former deputy director of Taiwan Central Daily News. Kilu has worked for Voice of America for a long time. She was the acting director for a period of time. After Kilu took over the acting CEO position on January 21st, she fired Robert Riley, the director of Voice of America, and Elizabeth Robbins, the deputy director. The dismissal caused controversy. These 2 people were only hired by Michael Pack last December. They've been on the job for only 1 month. Both of them signed a 2-year contract. If there are no legal issues, they cannot be fired, unless they resign voluntarily. Robert Riley believes that his dismissal is a decision of the Biden administration based on partisan politics and is not legal. The media reported that he and the deputy director, Elizabeth Robbins, were escorted by security guards out of the office. However, some sources say that in fact they were escorted out by security guards after protesting their illegal dismissal. In the beginning, former President Trump always wanted to replace the director of Voice of America, but he could not do it because he was abiding by the law. It was only last December that the director of Voice of America was finally replaced. But when President Biden took office, he completely disregarded the legal requirements and directly dismissed those who had signed the contract. This set a very pernicious precedent for political interference in the media. The director of Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia were also fired by the Biden administration in this round of purges. Among them, the director of Free Asia, Stephen Yates. He's very popular in Taiwan and was appointed by the recently dismissed Michael Pack. In addition, the director of the Cuban News Media Broadcasting Office also submitted his resignation after President Biden took office. As of January 24th, President Biden's appointed acting CEO of Global Media Agency, Kilu, had fired at least 5 media directors. All of them were hired by Michael Pack. Tens of thousands of people have lost their jobs since Biden entered the White House. A major reason for this is that Biden canceled the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, a project linking Canada and the United States. This resulted in at least a few thousand people losing their jobs. It's expected to create 10,000 jobs in 2021 if the construction had continued. When it was completed, it was going to bring jobs to an additional 42,000 people, but all of that has gone out the window with Biden's withdrawal of the project. The Laborers International Union of North America is one of several unions that publicly endorsed Biden's candidacy last year. The union's president stood up for Biden on November 7th last year. They said, "Together, we helped push Joe Biden and Kamala Harris over the top, and we helped elect many pro-union, pro-labor, and pro-family candidates to office." However, the union issued a statement after Biden rescinded the Keystone XL pipeline project. They stated, "The Biden administration's decision to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline permit on day one of his presidency is both insulting and disappointing to thousands of hardworking LIUNA members who will lose good-paying, middle-class, family-supporting jobs by blocking this 100% union project and pandering to environmental extremists." Another North American building trades union also stated, "Environmental ideologies have now prevailed, and over 1,000 union men and women have been terminated from employment on the project. We must all stand in their shoes and acknowledge the uncertainty and anxiety this government action has caused. We wonder if some of the unions who supported Biden regretted their choice. Former President Trump has waved goodbye and left the White House. Perhaps only now will Americans on the opposite side and traitors of Trump camp really know if Biden's arrival results in happiness or torment." Biden called out for unity, but whether the unity is with the hardworking American citizens or the radicals in the Democratic Party, the question mark is getting bigger and bigger. According to Fox News personality Tucker Carlson and many other U.S. media reports, Biden issued an internal directive to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement after taking office. A key part of the directive was that immigration officials immediately stopped all land and air deportations for a period of at least 100 days. It also states that there is no possibility of significant deportation in the foreseeable future. So to all illegal immigrants now in custody, release them all immediately. This means that those currently detained do not need to be deported. They will be able to move around in the United States. But as you might know, according to official data from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, there are currently 14,195 illegal immigrants in custody in approximately 138 prisons across the United States. More than 70% of them have been convicted or awaiting criminal sentences. Even if these illegal immigrants do not have a sponsor, they still must be released. This is against the current law. However, this is in line with the far-left advocates of open border. They even want a permanent halt to deportations in the United States. Until now, nobody knows if the U.S. Immigration Agency started to enforce this order or how many people have been released. The so-called inauguration ceremony is now over. All the 20,000 plus National Guard troops who were scheduled to be in D.C. were pulled out on the 24th. But the latest news reports that 5,000 to 7,000 of them will stay in D.C. until March. The reason given is that they are providing assistance such as security, communications, medical evacuation, logistics, and safety support to state, district, and federal agencies. The FBI claims to be defending itself against the threat of armed protests. However, only 3 arrests were made in the D.C. area on the 20th. But the FBI expelled 12 soldiers after conducting political vetting of all the National Guard troops stationed in D.C., and about 5,000 soldiers at one point were asked to leave the Capitol building. They had to spend a cold night in a large garage. This is a great shame. Biden therefore called the chief of the National Guard to apologize on the 22nd. His wife Jill took some small refreshments and went on a symbolic visit, but these were all afterthoughts. Now, before we move on, I want to make 2 requests. First, as I said before, our videos are being removed and demonetized. So if you enjoy this show, please consider supporting us. Our donor box link is in the description. And secondly, the censorship continues to be excessively restrictive. And if we get shut down, it would be great as a safety measure if you would please sign up to our email list so that way I can always get in touch with you. Okay, let's get back into this. There is one more thing that Biden has not apologized to the people for. Before entering the White House, Biden's team criticized the Trump administration's pandemic prevention strategy very severely and stated that they had a plan unlike Trump. But on January 22nd, Biden revealed the truth by stating that there is nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. So now they are saying there's nothing we can do. Where did all the previous confidence go? Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, has often disagreed with former President Trump and been questioned for defending the Chinese Communist Party's responsibility for the pandemic. Later, Fauci simply did not appear with Trump at the White House pressing briefing on the pandemic. Now that Biden is here, Fauci returned to the White House again. Perhaps Fauci was afraid that people didn't hear Biden clearly when he said he plans to distribute 100 million shots of vaccines in his first 100 days in office. Fauci clarified to the media that Biden had said 100 million shots, not 100 million people, because each person would need at least 2 shots. It would be already good enough if the vaccine could reach 67 million people on schedule. In this regard, CNN also touted Biden on the 22nd, saying that Biden's goal was too modest, which means that Biden can actually do more. CNN's attitude towards Trump's policy had always been pessimistic, but now they don't even criticize Biden's inconsistent statements at all. The left-wing media is doing its best to promote Biden, and Jen Psaki, Biden's White House press secretary's Twitter account banner is a picture of her in a confrontation she had with Trump. There's nothing about Biden in it at all. And now the White House YouTube channel looks really dismal. Every video has many thumbs down, and all the comment sections are closed because the negative comments below were way too overwhelming. People revealing the truth about his rise to power and mocking Biden. And some videos had been hidden. Let's also look at Biden's inauguration day. He faced 200,000 waving flags at the ceremony, but no audience was praying or applauding for him. And the day after his inauguration, he was impeached by Republican lawmakers. And the far-left group Antifa smashed up the Democratic Party headquarters in Portland because of the unequal sharing of the spoils. On January 20th, former President Trump left office at noon. Just after he left, Washington, D.C. announced new pandemic prevention guidelines for the U.S. Capitol. From the 22nd onward, the city's restaurants can open for indoor dining and restrictions on the number of guests. It could be that this new rule was planned much earlier. With the presidential transition scheduled long ago on January 20th, some conservatives are quite critical of Washington, D.C.'s choice to lift the ban only now. When Trump was in, things were very serious. Once Trump left, they relaxed control. Is this to show off Biden's political achievements? Of course, these are just some comments from the conservative public. But there is one more interesting thing. On January 20th, the first day Biden entered the White House, the World Health Organization issued a new notice warning medical professionals that a positive test does not necessarily mean confirmed. It states that the PCR polymerase chain reaction test, which is now commonly used, may result in a weak positive. What does this notice mean? We were told by medical professionals that this will directly lead to a reduction in the number of positive tests, and that a reduction in the number of confirmed cases is a political achievement. So the new notification from the WHO is considered a gift to Biden. But then again, if the pandemic gets really serious, it won't be easy for him to lower the numbers. If it becomes obvious he is lying about the numbers, he'll be found out sooner or later. But as of now, the US data is still relatively accurate. January 21st was Biden's first day in office. Besides trying to backtrack Trump's policies and eliminate some of the achievements of the previous administration, the top priority was pandemic prevention. From the afternoon of the 20th to the 21st, Biden signed at least 10 executive orders on pandemic prevention. This includes rejoining the WHO, vigorous production of vaccine and personal protective equipment, reopening schools when appropriate. He also promised to vaccinate 100 million Americans against the virus within 100 days. So far, 14.2 million Americans have received their first vaccine. Most of them were inoculated between mid-December and January 20th. When he signed the executive order on the 21st, the only question Biden allowed reporters on the floor to ask was, do you think 100 million people will be vaccinated in 100 days? Is this goal big enough? Biden said in his reply,
U.S. is right now.
When I announced it, you all said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man.
After briefly answering the only question, Biden left. Then his assistant began asking reporters to leave. This became the target story of some U.S. media, saying that Biden was tired. This is also his first full day in the White House and has already given people the feeling of fatigue. It has happened more than once that Biden did not take questions from reporters or just providing a short answer to the journalists. This may become the new normal in Biden's press conferences. Former President Trump has now moved to Florida and is now just relaxing after stepping down his presidency. As we mentioned earlier, reports show former President Trump might want to form a new party called the Patriotic Party. The new party would challenge the disappointing Republican Party and the far-left Democratic Party. The report indicated that it is unknown how serious Trump is about this idea because it takes a considerable investment and time to make it into a major player. Shortly after the news, Jason Miller, former President Trump's former senior advisor, had an interview with Just the News on January 21st. He talked about a lot of major plans that former President Trump had discussed, but he did not mention anything about President Trump's creating a new party. He said former President Trump has many goals for the next few years, including helping Republicans win back the House and Senate in the midterm elections of 2022. This is to thwart the Democratic Party's crazy behavior. He also said former President Trump is planning to work on a voter integrity and will expect this to become a leader on that front. Jason Miller also added that these things won't happen right away, but after a transition period. In addition, on January 21st, Mike Pompeo, President Trump's former Secretary of State, tweeted only a short sentence, 1,384 days. What exactly does this mean? It is very mysterious. The netizens started to leave comments below showing several different points of view, but the main point of view is that Pompeo's number refers to the 4-year countdown days. This may indicate that it could be former President Trump or himself to run for president again in 2024. However, if former President Trump really chooses to go for re-election in 2024, he has to get through one more important hurdle, and that's possible impeachment. Prior to January 20th, a total of 25,000 guardsmen were stationed in Washington, D.C. by various states to protect Biden's inauguration from potential armed protests. But what happened to these soldiers was very disappointing. According to Politico, reports on the 22nd, a guardsman revealed that on the 20th, he and his battalion of nearly 5,000 people were stationed in a building in the Senate chamber of Congress. Dozens of senators and representatives ran over and greeted them and took pictures enthusiastically. But less than 24 hours later, on January 21st, a Capitol security guard showed up and suddenly told the guardsmen, "You can leave now." It was still nighttime and the temperature in DC was very low. In the cold wind, the 5,000 soldiers had nowhere to go and had to go to a large parking garage nearby to rest. There was only one bathroom and one electrical outlet in the entire parking lot. They had no beds or blankets and had to sleep directly on the floor. The guardsman told the media that he felt incredibly betrayed. If this had happened during the Trump years, the leftist mainstream media would have immediately jumped to criticize. After word had gotten out that 5,000 National Guardsmen had been abandoned in the parking lot, the newly elected Republican Congresswoman Madison Cawthorn bought a bunch of pizzas and personally delivered them to the guardsmen in the parking lot. According to a report by OAN, on the morning of the 22nd, Trump told the guardsmen that they could stay at his lavish Trump Hotel in D.C. after hearing the news. Texas Republican Governor Abbott and Florida Republican Governor DeSantis were so angry when they learned of this situation that they immediately ordered the state's National Guard stationed in D.C. to return immediately. Texas sent 1,000 National Guardsmen, and Florida's number is still unclear. As early as last Monday, January 18th, Texas Governor Abbott was already not pleased with the treatment of guardsmen by D.C. politicians. At the time, it was revealed that the FBI did not trust the soldiers and had to conduct background checks on each of them. 12 of the soldiers were eventually removed from duty because they were thought to have alleged links to some so-called right-wing extremist group. Abbott expressed his anger in a tweet. "This is the most offensive thing I've ever heard. No one should ever question the loyalty or professionalism of the Texas National Guard." He also claimed that he will never send guardsmen to D.C. again if Washington politicians continue to be disrespectful. On the 22nd, the 5,000 guardsmen who previously slept in the parking garage were informed to return to their respective states. Prior to departure, they were allowed to rest in the warmer Capitol building. However, they will continue to sleep on the floor, and that's actually what they have been doing since the arrival in D.C. Photos of the guardsmen sleeping on the marble floor have been widely circulating on the internet and have been seen by many. Currently, Congress has now offered beds to guardsmen. In fact, the situation has already been like this for 20 days, and there's no point in making any last-minute change. Congress should just send these guardsmen home as soon as possible. As per the original plan, the guardsmen should have stayed in D.C. until January 24th, after which they would have all been withdrawn. But who knows if this plan is true now? We will have to wait and see. Well, that's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.